are participating in this meeting by video conference with no physical meeting location. Members of the public wishing to observe the meeting live may do so at mountainview.legistar.com, on YouTube at mountainview.gov/YouTube, and on Comcast Channel 26. As noted in the meeting agenda, members of the public may provide oral public comments during the public comment periods for an item by signing up at mountainview.gov/EPC_speakers. Emails and voicemails received by 5 p.m. today were forwarded to the EPC. All votes will be taken by roll call vote. Now I'll ask Planner Whitehall to proceed with the roll call.
Commissioner Capriles?
Here.
Commissioner Haymeyer?
Here.
Commissioner Lowe?
Here.
Commissioner Schmiesing?
Here.
Commissioner Yin?
Here.
Commissioner Dempsey?
Here.
And Vice Chair Cranston.
Here.
All right.
So, a brief welcome to our newest commission member, Commissioner Dempsey. Sure, we'll have a chance to chat more later, but I'd like to welcome him to his first meeting. Item 3 on the agenda is the review of meeting minutes. Reminder that all commissioners may vote on the minutes even if not in attendance. So first, I'd like to open up for any discussion on either the minutes for the meeting of November 18th, 2020 or December 2nd, 2020. No questions or changes? Okay. Then we'll open up for public comment. Would any member of the public on the line would like to provide comment on the minutes? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press 9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves using *6. The EPC clerk for Whitehall will start the timer and let you know when your time is up. Clerk Whitehall, are any attendees raising their hand to comment on the minutes?
No attendees are wishing to comment on the minutes.
Okay. So if no further comment, then we'll ask Clerk Whitehall to conduct a roll call vote on approval of the minutes.
Commissioner Capriles?
Aye.
Commissioner Haymeyer?
Do we need a motion?
Sorry, that's correct. So we do need a motion.
While my
I have a
hand
motion?
is raised, can I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from November 18th, 2020 and December 2nd, 2020 as included in the staff report?
I'll second.
Is there a second? Okay. So with that motion by Commissioner Haymeyer and a second by Commissioner Lowe, Clerk Whitehall, will you please do the roll call?
Commissioner Capriles?
Aye.
Commissioner Haymeyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Lowe?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmiesing?
Aye.
Commissioner Yin?
Aye.
Commissioner Dempsey?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Cranston.
Aye. So, well, it sounds like by unanimous vote, the minutes are approved. Section 4 of the agenda is oral communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the EPC on any matter not on the agenda tonight. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during this section. State law prohibits the Commission from acting on non-agenda items at this time. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on a non-agendized item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves using *6. Clerk Whitehall will start the timer and let you know when your time is up. Clerk Whitehall, are there any people looking to speak at this point?
No one looking to speak at this time.
Okay. Then I will close item 4 on the agenda. Item 5 on the agenda is public hearing regarding density bonus ordinance. I believe there is a staff presentation by Anna Salvatore, Assistant Planner, and Eric Anderson, Principal Planner. Would you like to take control?
Yes, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is Anna Salvador. I'm an assistant planner in the Housing Division, and tonight we will be discussing a proposed density bonus ordinance. The purpose of the proposed updates to the City Code are to reflect recent changes in state law. The state requires a local ordinance that specifies how state density bonus law will be implemented in the city, including application requirements. Review of density bonus projects has proven to be a complex process with many overlapping components, primarily in how density bonus interacts with other city rules, including FAR and the VMR program specifically. And so with this in mind, the goal of this work is to improve clarity within the ordinance for both applicants and staff about the components of state law, interactions with these local requirements, and also specifically what the city requires from applicants in order to review a density bonus request. Density bonus is not a new concept in Mountain View, and the city does have an ordinance in place that was established in 2013. Much of the language in this current ordinance is out of date. And in recent years, the city has experienced an increase in the number of projects that utilize density bonus. There's a couple examples on the screen right now. And just to kind of demonstrate the breadth and depth of projects that we've seen through density bonus, 1101 West El Camino is an ownership project, and it includes 5 affordable units. 400 San Antonio is a rental project that includes 48 affordable units. And the last one on the screen is 1701 West El Camino, which is a 100% affordable project that includes 67 affordable units. Density bonus is a state program that is implemented at the local level, and it is most applicable to residential projects that are providing affordable units, including units to meet replacement requirements under state law. And so depending on a project's scope, under density bonus law, projects could be eligible for a density bonus, which is an increase above the maximum density that is otherwise permitted. Incentives and concessions, which are relief from cost-constraining development standards. Waivers, which are relief from physically constraining development standards, as well as parking reductions. The state law has specific defined parking ratios that apply to all proposed residential units in a qualifying project. In terms of the proposed ordinance, there's kind of 6 major components that I'd like to discuss this evening and draw your attention to. We're at this time proposing a simplified ordinance that is more responsive to any subsequent changes in state law. And the proposed ordinance makes reference to relevant sections of the state law rather than directly pulling language as has been done in the past. Also, the findings listed in the proposed ordinance are more streamlined to further clarify the city's limited discretion to deny specific requests under density bonus. We also are proposing changes in more specific detail regarding application requirements, and this just provides clarity for applicants about the city's expectations upfront as they prepare their application and allows for a more efficient review process if staff has all that information upfront to determine eligibility. The proposed ordinance also clarifies where in the city FAR is the density metric that will be used to determine base density. And the existing density bonus ordinance includes language that allows the city to consider a density bonus greater than what is allowed under state law. A challenge with this existing language is that it doesn't include any guideposts to determine when and how the city would consider these greater density bonuses. So staff is recommending limiting this allowance to projects authorized through the Affordable Housing NOFA, and this supports city flexibility to provide streamlined approvals for affordable housing projects. Historically, the city has used BMR standards for the administration of affordable units delivered through the density bonus program, particularly in how affordability is guaranteed and the tenant selection process, for example. And the proposed ordinance formally incorporates these BMR standards for density bonus units, Additionally, in an effort to kind of further align density bonus with our recently adopted BMR standards, some components of the BMR program have been integrated, including distribution of units, requiring that they be comparable in appearance to the market rate units in the project. And for ownership projects specifically, the affordability term would be in perpetuity. And if the project is providing lower income ownership units, that there would be an HOA reserve established for those units as well. As these represent local standards and not requirements under state law, these standards individually would still be subject to incentive or waiver requests. But overall, though, they provide greater consistency with the BMR program. Staff is also proposing some slight cleanup items as well, including moving the density bonus ordinance to the administration article. This just creates more consistency as the density bonus includes application requirements and findings, which would typically be found in the administration section. We're also proposing to remove density bonus from table 3644-1. Just to further clarify, the density bonus does not have its own separate application review process. Rather, it would be reviewed as a component of the application as part of some other underlying permit with the project. And then based on questions that we received from commissioners, we reviewed 364875, which just discusses lower density bonuses than what is granted or what is required in state density bonus law. And after working on a response to this question, we would like to propose some clarification to the ordinance as it was presented originally, just to further clarify what the intent of this section is. And the clarifying language would just be that it would apply to developments that do not provide sufficient number of affordable units to qualify for a density bonus under state law. And then as a companion to the ordinance, staff is also developing an administrative guidelines document. And this, the goal of this document is to serve as a one-stop shop to both reference state law and the local ordinance and provide further clarification, examples, and explanations as the city continues to navigate future projects, as state law is amended in the future, and as council provides specific direction. This document would be available for both applicants and staff to reference. And thus, staff is recommending the following recommendation as shown on the screen. And this concludes my presentation.
All right. So would any member of the Planning Commission like to address a question about the presentation or the material of the proposed ordinance? Can I put the screen back that shows hands? I can't tell if there's hands being raised. It's just this on the screen. Are there any hands up?
Anna,
Commissioner Sneed.
can you do end screen share, Anna?
There we go. Okay, so Commissioner Sneezing?
Yeah, I was wondering if other cities in the area have put together similar ordinances and what that has looked like, and if they have, or if they're planning on it if they haven't yet.
Other cities have a range of different ways that they apply state density bonus in their local ordinances. The city of Mountain View has some very specific kind of intersections with specific other codes, things like our BMR code our use of FAR as a density standard, things like that. And so some of those details are unique to Mountain View. But some cities take the language straight from the density bonus, state law. Some of them just reference it. It really is all over the map.
Thank you. And then I was wondering if you've had any feedback from developers, or if anyone has reached out to you in regards to this proposed ordinance yet.
I haven't received any direct questions from developers. We did do some outreach over the summer when we were working on the ordinance.
And Commissioner Lowe, questions?
Thank you. I had a similar question as Commissioner Shemizing, and a follow-up question along that line, which is whether there are any good examples or best practices that you have researched that may be applicable or can be incorporated in this new ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, Anna may be able to add on to this, but I think there are a lot of, kind of fine-grained things that we discussed with our attorneys and our outside attorneys on kind of best practices for density bonus law. Certainly we want to stay on the right side of, SB 330, which limits how we can change certain rules, and we want to make sure that we can, ultimately the way that we write our code is consistent with the intent of state density bonus law. And so we've refined all of those, but it's a lot of very fine-grained detailed things, for example, what just came up today about the code that we're recommending slightly modifying. It is best practice to kind of take that language, not straight from the density bonus, but to provide additional clarifying detail as it suits the local conditions.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to what Eric just mentioned too is that incorporating the application requirements specifically and clearly was kind of one of the major pieces of feedback that we received. But the more clear the process is, the more specific the information the city is requesting, the easier it is to review these projects and also submit applications.
Great, thank you. My other question is kind of, taking a step back, and I'm wondering what issues staff has encountered in the past to prompt some of these improvement and changes, and kind of what big picture problems are we trying to solve?
So there's a few kind of key issues that have come up a number of times. I think one of the major ones is determining the base density of a project, because that kind of is the baseline for determining eligibility and number of incentives that a project is eligible for. And those kind of questions kind of snowball from there. And so that was one of the things we really focused on clarifying in the ordinance. Additionally, with the BMR program specifically, having consistent standards that allow those affordable units to meet the requirements of both density bonus and BMR, and all of the different kind of standards within that was another key kind of thing that has slowed down the review of these projects in the past.
So with the proposed draft, are you pretty satisfied that these issues have been resolved by what you have put together?
Yeah, I would say that in terms of the language in the ordinance, it provides the direction that was needed. And then because we have that kind of more clear direction, we're able to provide examples and further kind of explanation within the administrative document, the administrative guidelines document as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner Yin?
Thank you. Just quickly, the process for a developer to come, are they required to have like a pre-meeting before they even turn in an application? I was just wondering if it might be easier for the staff to just go ahead and calculate the base for them, tell them what it is, and then walk them through it and show them how you got to those numbers. And that way everyone's on the same page from the get-go, and then walk them through the options. I didn't know if that was an option or if developers tend to want to just kind of hold their cards close to their chest, do everything first, and then come with an application.
Yeah, so that's a really great question that gets to a lot of the nuance about what it's like being a planner at the counter or working with a project applicant. In general, you want the code to be clear enough that anybody can independently, find the answer, right? Mm-hmm. That's the ideal. And as Anna said, I think we've gotten there. I mean, Anna's worked really hard on this. We've all refined it a number of times to get it to that point where it's clear and objective, and we have confidence that anybody can come forward. On another level, there's a customer service side to what you're talking about, and certainly we do strive to provide outstanding customer service. That being said, an applicant's application, a developer's application is their proposal. And it is incumbent on them to propose something that is consistent with our code. And we want to make sure that they're showing their work in such a way that they can understand it and in such a way that we can review it.
Okay. No, that makes perfect sense. So typically, when they first show up, it is their application. That's the first time they meet with you. Yeah, I mean, we certainly have meetings for large and complex projects. We have many meetings before developers even put together an application. And during those meetings, we can have those conversations to clarify how things are calculated, provide that customer service. But ultimately, when an application is submitted, it does have to show its work, that it's complying with the code. Yep, thank you.
Questions from any other commissioners? Commissioner Hairmine.
Thank you. Thank you for the staff report and the presentation. It was very helpful. I wonder just a little bit, maybe Anna, you can explain. So in the staff report, it talks about how the density bonus ordinance includes language that the city can consider a density bonus greater than what's authorized under state law. Do you have any idea what the ceiling could potentially be in terms of that bonus density that the city, just ballpark? I mean, more is better when it comes to affordable housing, but.
I don't know if there's like an exact percentage ceiling. I think another way to think about it are constraints in terms of incentives and waiver requests and what a project is really able to achieve on a specific site, and those would really kind of impact what that actual threshold would be. Thank you.
Yeah, I would also just add to that, excellent answer, but I would also just add that the NOFA process is kind of a mini gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. You can think about it as a way for the community, the way for the council to vet a project prior to staff working on it. And so these projects aren't coming out of thin air. They're going through a council review process. And so during that kind of initial NOFA council review process, there will be some analysis of neighborhood compatibility and appropriate location and all of these things that will act as constraints on unreasonable scale.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Dempsey, there's a little raise hand button in Zoom you can click, but you're on.
You can tell I'm new because I can't figure out where the raise hand button is, but thank you. But being completely new to this, rather than a couple of questions, I just had a couple of quick comments I guess I would make because my questions already got answered. I think one, I love it that we're doing code cleanup. Code cleanup is not exciting, but it's actually really important if what you care about is people being able to read it and use it. So I'm actually kind of weirdly excited that we're doing code cleanup. And I think that that's a good and smart thing, and I'm glad that planning does that. Same with the creation of guidelines, anything that makes it easier to use. And I do appreciate actually the quick turnaround on the questions and especially kind of the clarification that's added to the ordinance. Yeah, and just let me just say that's it. For my first experience here, I was actually very impressed with what staff was able to do in a short period. That's all I had. Thank you.
Commissioner Hamer, your hand's still up. Commissioner Yen or Commissioner Lowe, you have additional questions?
Yeah, I had a really quick question again. This one was noticing that some of the precise plans use the FAR and some the density. Was there a reason why we did this switch? Is it because we found that one was better and then we moved to one version? So moving forward, will it be consistent, or were there other reasons? And we'll have both continuing on.
Yeah, that's a great question. Just to clarify, FAR is the density in those precise plans. It's a little bit of a kind of a legal specificity, but I just want to make that very, very clear. When you are asking for a density bonus with FAR, you are asking for an FAR bonus. So FAR is the density. And so the process that kind of created this policy of density being measured in FAR really started with the 2030 general plan, which was adopted in 2012. There was a lot of council direction at the time that they felt that the number of units that you could fit inside a building was less meaningful to the effect on the community and the effect on the form and character, and even the effect on things like the population being served. It was less important than the actual form of the building and the building envelope. So we actually adopted in the general plan this statement that in these areas where we are anticipating change, the general plan change areas, we are going to make FAR the density standard. And so that is what we implemented in the new precise plans, El Camino, San Antonio, East Wisman, and North Bayshore, based on that direction in the general plan. And so we don't have a dwelling units per acre standard in those precise plans. We just have an FAR standard, which is a density metric.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Cabrillas, you had your hand up for a moment. Did you have a question?
Actually, I wanted to thank the staff for taking the time to clarify this. Just a little historical tidbit from me. When we first tried to follow the state density bonus, many of us on the commission at that time felt like we had our hands tied because it was so complex and so difficult to really understand from our perspective that it was really, we felt like there was nothing we could say. That the developer came forward and they said, this is what we can do and we can have this because it's in the state density bonus. So initially that was really, really tough. So to bring this to a clarification point and to provide, a booklet with guidelines and this sort of thing is just a huge, huge step forward. So Anna, I know that that is not an easy task. So I appreciate your huge efforts and the staff to not only clarify for your use, but to clarify for us to try to understand how the developers are taking advantage of that, are utilizing it to not only to their benefit, but to the city's benefits as well. So just wanted to add that little historical tidbit. So thank you very much.
Commissioner Lowe, did you have another question?
Yeah, I do. I have another question, which is specific to a little bit of the language, the limitations to waivers and incentives. Refers to some public health or safety standards that sometimes cannot be mitigated. And I was just wondering if you might have some examples to help me understand that. This is in, I think, F, general provisions for density bonus F.
Sure. I mean, this hardly ever comes up, but if, for example, a request for a waiver would be in conflict with some building code, some building safety code, like the building's more likely to fall down in an earthquake because they're trying to move some wall somewhere or something, then that would not be an eligible waiver. It's really something that hardly ever comes up. I don't think, I think it's one of those kind of catch-alls in the state law that's like just to kind of, make sure that there's some protection of health and safety.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Shemizan, you had another question?
Yeah, I just was remembering the project we reviewed this past fall, where part of, correct me if I'm wrong, part of the community benefits went towards covering the HOA fees of those lower income units. And I was wondering, now that this is clarified in this density bonus ordinance, that the HOA fees do have to be kind of mitigated or covered for lower income units, if developers could still propose to put some other community benefit dollars towards that, or if now community benefit dollars will have to go elsewhere.
Yeah, that's an important, I think, kind of clarification, because it's part of the standards now. The community benefit dollars would be going towards other things.
Thank you.
So other questions? I do have one. It's not so much a question about the way the ordinance is written. Commissioner Schmiesing's question and Commissioner Yim's question about the differences between the El Camino and San Antonio precise plans versus North Bay Shore and East Westman, to me highlight a side benefit of reviewing the density bonus law and how it changes our law, our ordinances. Those kinds of insights are things that we gained as we worked through the density bonus and how it interacted with our own. I don't fundamentally have an issue with referring to it on the outside, but the mechanism of going through and having to review our own ordinances created, at least within me, an awareness of, hey, there's something that the density bonus does that affects what we do. And right now, this, as proposed, that review process would no longer be there. And so something that would actually be beneficial to the commission and potentially to council on an insight as to how the density bonus affects the city and other laws goes away. Do you have anything? I didn't see anything in here that would indicate how updates to the density bonus law would be brought back to us as part of the administrative guidelines or something that would ensure that we're still aware of these things, so that as we're doing our deliberations, it's been valuable. They're broader items rather than the specific details, but I don't see anything that would, did I miss it, that would help to make sure that we don't lose that knowledge that we can.
That's an excellent point, Vice Chair Cranston. And I think it is a reminder that it is incumbent on staff to keep the commission aware of things that are coming in, of legislation that comes out of state law. The reality is that, we hadn't updated our density bonus code for the last, decade or so. And there have been numerous state law changes that have brought our density bonus code out of consistency with the state law over that time. So I think the code will come back to the commission if there are opportunities for the commission to, or opportunities for the city to update how it implements the state density bonus law. And that's really the commission's opportunity to weigh in on those details. But in the meantime, it is certainly incumbent on staff to keep the commission aware of legislation as it comes out of the state and as it affects projects that would come before the commission.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. So we'll move on to public comment. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comments on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves by using *6. UPC Clerk, Whitehall, will start the timer and let you know when your time is up. Clerk Whitehall, are there any attendees who have raised their hands or requested time to speak?
Yes, we have two attendees that would like to speak. Just get set up very quickly. All right, Dennis Martin, I'm going to allow you to talk, and then you'll have Vice Chair Cranston is 3 minutes. Is that the allowed time? Great. So you can go ahead, Dennis.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. I'm Dennis Martin, speaking on behalf of the Building Industry Association of the Bay Area. Thank you for this opportunity to make comments to the draft density bonus ordinance and guidelines. While it may be in the city's interest to steer developers away from proposing density bonus projects and toward applying as a gatekeeper or area plan project, the density bonus ordinance and guidelines should not serve that purpose. In fact, state density bonus law preempts local policies, goals, or objectives, not the other way around. The city needs to address the legality of trying to force developers to choose between using the local base FAR bonus process and using the state density bonus law. In fact, density bonus purposes isn't the real maximum allowed density, the general plan nominal maximum, plus the FAR bonus received by providing community benefits. Providing those benefits results in a ministerial approval of the additional FAR, right? So how is this any different than requiring normal projects to comply with the litany of local development regulations in order to be approved at the base max density? The city also needs to address the legality of requiring a new unsubstantiated fee of an unknown amount to underwrite homeowners association fees that may occur if a homeowner of an affordable unit is unable to pay their HOA fees. This requirement is patently anti-ownership housing development using the density bonus law. And what about the notion that the city can require whatever additional information it deems necessary to process the density bonus concession waiver application? DBL applications are already covered by the Project Streamlining Act deemed complete application process, i.e., the DBL application information just needs to be posted and publicly available, and the city gets one shot at asking for more information. Now, this state density bonus law is clearly a powerful tool for enabling developers to include very low, low, and moderate income housing units in their projects. The purpose of this law is to encourage cities to offer incentives to housing developers that will contribute significantly to the economic feasibility of lower income housing. This proposal falls short of that goal. And it should, BIA encourage the city to outreach to builders to help shape this ordinance. Because with this draft ordinance and guidelines, the city signals that it is much more interested in protecting the bonus FAR program and leveraging unsubstantiated community benefit fees extracted from projects in the precise plans than working with state density bonus law. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Clerk Whitehall, do we have any other speakers?
Yes, Alex Nunez, I just allowed you to speak. So you can go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for the discussion. I found it very stimulating and rewarding to listen to. I think Commissioner Dempsey, I share your enthusiasm of code cleanup, in particular as an advocate for increased supply of housing, and also as an advocate for our less vulnerable, our more vulnerable or less economically wealthy residents who need to have access to affordable housing such that they can not only be contributing members to our local economy, but also do so in a way that doesn't require them to sacrifice their future to contribute and live in our community. And so I largely am very much supportive of the direction that the staff recommendation is heading in. I think that if we do want to be a little bit more expansive and to be quite honest, also just reduce the friction not only between the way that the laws and technical requirements work between what the city standards and state standards are, but also just generally interpersonally, right, between the state, between developers, between community members, between this body or another body in the city that has a say. I think that there's a lot of room to do that. In particular, I think Commissioner Capriles, I can totally understand and imagine, having developers show up and say, "Hey, this is what we're doing. Tough luck. State says we can do it." I do think that, to be quite honest, that kind of sucks being in that position. But I do think that one of the ways to do it, as you guys know, the stricter of the standards will prevail generally when it's a state or city standards kind of toss up. And so I think one of the ways that we can just reduce the friction is by doing the best we can to align with state standards, and also on top of that provide greater incentivization to drive the kind of city that we want to have, the kind of development we want in the places we want it, right? So in particular, I'm looking at standards like SB 35, right? I'm not sure if we've met our low-income REMA targets, but if we want to avoid situations in the future where developers can show up and just say, "Hey, this is what we want," you have no say in it, then why don't we just align with SB 35 standards, whether it's in the city, we can then make sure that we provide incentives on top of that to drive certain designs, or have that development occur in certain places. So it's a way to keep our local control while acknowledging that sometimes the state comes in and says, we got to do things. So thanks a lot for listening, guys. And happy inauguration.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk Whitehall, are there any other members of that are interested in speaking?
Yes, we have one more. Emily Ann Ramos, I'm going to allow you to talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, awesome. My name is Emily Ann Ramos. I am with Mountain View YIMBY. We are advocates for more housing in our city and beyond. We are Mountain View residents and workers who seek solutions to our area's housing shortage. And we would like to echo and support the comments of the previous speaker, Mr. Nunez, that we thank the staff and the commission for working on this, and we hope that you can be more aligned with have the local ordinances more aligned to state law to make things a much easier. And if you were to modify our local ordinances, please modify them in a way to allow more housing in our fair city. And welcome, Mr. Dempsey, to the EPC. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Ramos. Clerk Whitehall, any other speakers?
No other speakers, thank you.
And we'll bring this back to the EPC for deliberation and action. So any members of the commission would like to open that up? Looks like Commissioner Hammond.
Thank you. I just wonder if maybe the city attorney staff would want to comment at all about the first speaker and whether there is some potential incompatibility if community benefits can no longer go toward the HOA reserve.
I'll jump in. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. I think so. Good evening, commissioners. Nicole Wright with the City Attorney's Office. So, as I understood the comment that was raised, I guess I didn't understand it as it applied to the community benefits, but as to the requiring that reserve funds be set aside for ownership, for HOA use related to ownership units. And yeah, my understanding is that that the requirements that we're putting in this density bonus ordinance are consistent with the requirements that we have reflected in our BMR ordinance, and that this is something that is appropriate to also include in our density bonus ordinance. Nothing under state density bonus law precludes or prohibits the city from doing so.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dempsey.
So if that's the case, if it's the case that those requirements, putting the money into the HOA can be put in the guidelines, does it need to be stated in the guidelines, or would it be helpful to state in the guidelines that in fact it is not, the community benefits kind of conversation no longer applies? I'm sure there's a better way to say it, but does that point need to be clarified in the guidelines itself? Or is it made clear elsewhere in the ordinance?
So I think by including the language that's included in the draft, in the proposed ordinance, it creates a new obligation for HOA reserve funds for ownership units that didn't previously exist. It currently exists for our BMR units, but not as applied to density bonus. And so I think the prior project that was referenced earlier by Mr. Anderson was, or I'm sorry, maybe it was Commissioner Schmeezing, that was basically referenced, indicated that there was some discussion, I don't recall the ins and outs of it, but some discussion of using community benefits for reserve, I think, and I think that was in the absence of some other mechanism requiring that. And so including it here in the ordinance basically creates that mechanism for that obligation. And I'll let either Eric or Anna, if you guys want to add anything to that, because you guys know the ins and outs of that a little bit more than I do.
Yeah, I just want to quickly clarify too that the BMR, or sorry, excuse me, the HOA reserve only applies to lower income ownership units, so would not be for all affordable ownership units provided. Yeah, that was my clarification.
Thank you.
Okay. Just a general, I guess, a general comment. While I understand the concern from the builders that they would like us, every city in the state to align to the density bonus, I'm of the view that the BMR ordinance that we put in place is something that we have, the commission and the city council have looked at conscientiously as to what's the right thing to do for Mountain View. So laying some additional requirements beyond the minimum standards, quite frankly, that the density bonus provides, as long as they're within what's permitted under state law, to me is not an unreasonable thing to do. But for us to be able to look at what do we need to do to make sure that what's happening in the city is right for our city is our obligation. The state looks at the state as a whole. They're not looking at every individual city. So I'm personally not uncomfortable with having the requirements that are part of the BMR ordinance as part of in conjunction with density bonus, and I'm supportive of the proposed approach. Commissioner Capellas?
Vice Chair Cranston, I certainly agree with you, and I think the idea is to get some consistency across all of the ordinances within Mountain View, and I think that's really what the staff has excellently done. And I do support the recommendation by the staff to the council based on this ordinance. I think it's a smart thing to do, and the more clarity we can get around these ordinances, the easier it is for the staff and for the developers to work. So I'd like to propose that we move the recommendation and give it to, provide it to the council.
Commissioner Hamer?
Thank you. Like Commissioner Capriles, I also share my support for this recommended cleanup. I really like the approach that staff was taking about making references to the specific state legislation without using the same language. I think it really advances the efforts to streamline, clarify, and align. Just in terms of the staff report in general, I really appreciated seeing the summary table of recent legislation, and then in the follow-up, it was so helpful to see which projects recently have taken advantage of the state density bonus. I thought, I had the impression personally that there had been a lot more projects, and so I think it's a good signal that this is working and that it's not nearly as widespread as I had assumed. So I appreciated seeing that data. I'm happy to either make a motion or second, given others feedback, and appreciate the presentation tonight.
Commissioner Shimizu?
Yeah, I just wanted to echo my fellow commissioners. I thought that this was a very well put together ordinance, and appreciated the flexibility of pointing to state law and also allowing for this to be superseded by both changes in state law and actions by council. Yeah, and thought that it's very, very thoughtful, very well put together, and I think will be personally helpful in the future for me as well as a reference point, and I'm sure for my fellow commissioners and council members and people who are interested in the affordable housing and housing in general in Mountain View.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes, I wanted to say that I do feel that getting everybody sort of on the same baseline of understanding is key before you enter any sort of negotiation. So it is much appreciated that we are clarifying the ordinances so that it's understandable by everyone, just to start with. And I think that what Vice Chair Cranston had said was what I was feeling as well. As a commissioner, I feel like it's my obligation to do what we think is right for the city. And as long as what the ordinance, that the city ordinance is in line with the state mandates, we can take whatever rights we have as a city to ensure that those state laws are applied in a manner that is best for our community. So I am all in favor of moving forward with staff's recommendation.
Commissioner Lowe?
I don't have too much to add to what others have said. I'm also in support of the proposed ordinance.
So it sounds like we're ready to take Commissioner Caprillis up on her offer to make a motion. So Commissioner Caprillis?
Sure, if we can bring up the recommendation on screen, that would be helpful, Anna. So I would like to move that we adopt a resolution of the Environmental Planning Commission of the City of Mountain View recommending that City Council adopt an ordinance to repeal in its entirety Division 11 of Article 4 of Chapter 36 of the Mountain View City Code and add a new Division 8 of Article 16 of Chapter 36 of the Mountain View City Code related to density bonus, with modifications to 36.45.75 parentheses G to specify for developments that do not provide a sufficient number of affordable units to qualify for a density bonus.
Commissioner Hammer, were you?
Yep, I'll second.
So, Clerk Whitehall, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Commissioner Caprillis?
Aye.
Commissioner Haymeyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Lowe?
Yes.
Commissioner Schmeezing?
Aye.
Commissioner Yin? Sorry, Commissioner
You're
Yin?
on mute.
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Dempsey?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Cranston?
Aye.
That is 7-0. The motion carries.
Thank you. With that, we will move on to item number 6, new business. Election of the Marijuana Planning Commission Chair and Vice Chair for 2021. Are there any nominations for the office of Chair? Commissioner Schmeezing?
I nominate Vice Chair Cranston.
I second that.
I guess I'm supposed to ask myself if I'm willing to serve in that capacity. So, yeah, I'm open to doing that. Commissioner Lowe, you had your hand up, or?
Yeah, I was going to second the motion or the nomination.
Are there any other nominees? Then we'll close and let's see. Would any member of the public on the line like to comment on this item? If so, please raise your hand in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can unmute or mute using *6. Clerk Whitehall will start the timer for you when your time is up. Clerk Whitehall, has anyone requested this opportunity to speak?
No one on the line wishing to speak.
We will bring it back to the commission. Clerk Whitehall, can you call the roll?
Yes, Commissioner Caprillis?
Aye.
Commissioner Haymeyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Lowe?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmeezing?
Aye.
Commissioner Yin?
Aye.
Commissioner Dempsey?
Aye.
And Vice Chair Cranston?
Aye. Okay. And we'll move on to that passed 7-0. Then we'll move on to the Vice Chair. Are there nominations for Vice Chair? I see Commissioner Caprillis' hand.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Commissioner Lowe for the position of vice chair. I think that her community experience, and many of us have community experience, but I think she's done such an amazing job, and would like her to use those skills as the new vice chair of the EPC.
Commissioner Lowe, would you be willing to serve in that capacity?
I'm honored to accept the nomination. Thank you.
Are there other nominations? Commissioner Yin?
Oh, I was going to second it, but.
I don't see their hands, so it sounds like we have there's one nominee. So with that, we'll open it up for public comment. The nominations are closed. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on this item? If so, click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. Phone users can mute and unmute themselves with *6. Clerk Whitehall will start the timer and let you know when your time is up. Clerk Whitehall, are there any attendees who wish to speak on this item?
No attendees wishing to speak on this item.
We'll bring it back to the commission. So Clerk Whitehall, can you call the roll?
Commissioner Caprillis?
Aye.
Commissioner Haymeyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Lowe?
Aye.
Commissioner Schmeezing?
Aye.
Commissioner Yin?
Aye.
Commissioner Dempsey?
Aye.
And now Chair Cranston.
Aye. And so we have a new vice chair.
Yay.
Thank you
That
for
we
the
move
trust.
on.
Thank you for the trust you place in me.
We
We'll move on
count on you to keep Chair Cranston in line.
So item 7 is commission staff announcements, updates, requests, and committee reports. Anybody have an item that they wish to bring forward? Maybe future agenda, Eric?
Could I ask Commissioner Dempsey to give us a little introduction to everyone and give us a little of your background so we know a little bit more about you?
Well, I couldn't refuse that. Well, thank you, and for everyone, thank you really for the warm welcome that I've received from everybody to join EPC. It really makes volunteering in local government really quite enjoyable. I have to say, shout out to anybody watching. It's great to be on these commissions. For me, I actually am an attorney by training. The bulk of my career is actually working for the state legislature on consumer protection matters. So that's the bulk of what I've done is look at code up in Sacramento. So I work for tech down here now. And I'm very humbled and honored that I get to do this especially with such good people. So to the extent that, a little bit of the future of Mountain View rests in our hands, that's, it's a bit of a weighty responsibility, but it's a great honor to get to do it. So I just look forward to, I think, contributing a little bit to all the great work by the great people that sit on this commission. And thanks for asking.
Thank you. We're delighted to have you.
Yes, welcome.
Welcome. Other input, Eric?
Sure. Well, yeah. Welcome aboard, Commissioner Dempsey. It's great to have you. So glad you're here, and looking forward to a great year with all of you. Happy New Year to everybody. We are expecting a couple of very exciting items at our next meeting, scheduled for February 3rd. One of them is the Google Middlefield Park Master Plan, which has been getting a little bit of news recently. We do have some materials about it on our website if you want to look into it a little bit. If you go to the active projects page on our website, you can find some information about it. That is that is a legislative act because it's a master plan and it's associated with the DA. We also have a request for a rezoning, which has been in the process for a few years now and is now kind of moving forward again at 555 Middlefield. That's kind of near the Highway 85 overpass. And so there's going to be a study session with them as well. So as a rezoning, that's also a legislative action.
Are those both on the 3rd?
Those are both scheduled for the 3rd, yeah. So it is going to be a fairly
big meeting.
And so we're really looking forward to getting your input there.
Any other announcements from commissioners or requests?
Maybe, sorry.
Commissioner Haymeyer?
Just one question, Eric. Do you know for Commissioner Dempsey if the League of California Cities, are they going virtual with their Planning Commissioners Academy?
It's an excellent question. I will look into that and get back to you all.
I know a lot of their materials. If not, I can send, I know I saved one handbook, which I can send to Eric and then route it to you, Commissioner Dempsey. I found it very helpful.
And also, Commissioner Schmiesing hasn't had a chance to go yet either. So certainly either of you could go. Have any other commissioners not gone? Oh, Vice Chair Cranston. Okay. Yeah. Certainly we want to make sure if it's 3 of you that it's not overlapping with an EPC meeting, because that gets into very small meeting size, but we can certainly work out who might be able to go this year. We certainly have funds for that. And it's probably, I should say go in a virtual sense. So it's probably not going to have your EPC duties.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if that was done face to face this room. Okay. And then I guess a request for Eric and back to staff. One of the bigger projects that's on the planning department's goals still, and I'm assuming that the city will continue with it under the new council, is the R3 zoning work that's being done. I guess two reasons I'd like to just request either let's call it a study session or update session from staff on that. There have been input sessions from the community and surveys done on that. And I was contacted by a member of the community with some questions that they came away kind of the impression that the outcome had already kind of been kind of decided, and they felt that the sessions were more justifying that outcome, number one, and that a fair number of the members that participated were non-residents of Mountain View, and it wasn't clear that that process would allow us to understand that input, whether it was coming from Mountain View members or outside members. So understanding that process, what was out of that, number one. But then also, the last time we talked about it, Commissioner Schmiesing and Commissioner Dempsey were not on the commission. We only had an introduction at the end of 2019 on it. It's been quite a while, and my own sense is that this is something that may have as much of an impact potentially on the future development of Mountain View as any precise plan has done. So I think just bringing us all back up to speed would be helpful. I don't know if other members of the commission feel the same way, but I'd like to request that we bring that back before a specific set of changes to the R3 zoning takes place, so that we can level set as we go into that.
Yeah, we are looking at tentatively holding a study session with the EPC later in the spring, so that'll be fairly soon.
Thank you.
Sure. And thank you for the feedback. That's great to hear. I'll definitely pass it on.
All right, any other items? If not, then we will adjourn the meeting at 8 to 11 p.m. And the next regularly scheduled meeting will be held on February 3rd, 2021. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Well,
Bye.